Top of the day to you all. You are welcome to the part B of Module 6, Research Method. Here we shall be talking about population, sample and sampling procedure, and what have you. What is a population in research? A population is a group of experimental data, persons, etc. A population is built up of elementary units which cannot be further decomposed. In the example we've been given all along, effectiveness of laboratory method on student academic achievement. Under your population, maybe you want to carry out your research at the senior secondary school level. So your population is maybe senior secondary school 2. That is your population. Senior secondary school 2 in Ijebu-Ode local government or any other local government of your choice. You want to use the senior secondary school 2 in all the schools in Ijebu-Ode local government. That is your population. Sample and sampling procedure. A sample is a smaller, manageable version of larger group. It is a subset containing the characteristics of a larger population. Samples are used in statistical testing when population sizes are too large for the test to include all possible members of or observation. A sample should represent the whole population and not a fraction without any bias or sentiment. Sampling is a procedure wherein a fraction of the data is taken from a larger set of data and the inference drawn from the sample is extended to a whole group. The following are the basic probability sampling techniques. Like I told you the other time, you want to use senior secondary school 2 for your study in all the secondary school in Ijebu-Ode local government. That's your population. But your sample now will now be, for instance, let's say we have about 60 secondary schools in Ijebu-Ode and they all have senior secondary schools. Those 60 secondary schools they are the population. There's no way you make use of all the SS2 in all the 60 secondary schools. So you have to now pick some of the schools and use, assuming you pick just 5 or 10 out of the school. So those 10 will now represent the sample. Or maybe you picked 5. The 5 now be referred to as what? Sample. Because you have taken those 5 or 10 out of the 60, which is the population. So that's what sample means. That's what sample means. And then the sampling procedure now is, how do you now go about selecting the schools you want to use out of the large number of the population. Now the first one we said simple random sampling. Simple random sampling. This is the ideal choice as it is a perfect random method. Using this method, individuals are randomly selected from a list of the population, and every single individual has an equal chance of selection. You have selected 5. You randomly select 5 or 10 out of the 60 secondary schools. I'm still talking about the examples I gave earlier, assuming 60 secondary schools in Ijebu-Ode local government. This is the population. So you now simply select, 5 or 10 out of those schools, you make sure it's cut across the 60 schools. Or you just say, maybe in Ijebu-Ode local government, you have different types of schools, but you make use of the co-educational schools. That is the one that has both male and female. And out of these 60 schools, you simply select maybe 5 or 10. So that is what is meant by simple random sampling. The other one, we call it stratified random sampling. Stratified random sampling. Stratified random sampling is possible when it makes sense to partition the population into groups based on a factor that may influence the variable that is being measured. These groups are then called strata. An individual group is called a stratum. With stratified sampling, one should partition the population into group, strata. Obtain a simple random sample from each group, that is stratum. Then under this stratified random sampling, we have proportionate stratified random sampling and disproportionate stratified random sampling. And what do this mean? When you say proportionate, when you say proportionate, what does it mean? The sample size of each stratum in this technique is proportionate to the population size of the stratum when viewed against the entire population. This means that each stratum has the same sampling fraction. For example, you have 3 strata with 100 students, 200 students, and 300 population sizes, respectively. And the researcher chooses a sample fraction of half. That is, in each of the stratum, you want to use half of the population size. Then the researcher must randomly sample. You know what I mean now? I said 100, 200, and 300. And since you are using half from each, so in 100, how many are you going to use? You will use 50. That is, half of 100 is 50, half of 200 is 100, and half of 300 is what? 150. At the end of the day, you'll be having, instead of 600, you'll be having 300. You're having 300. Your population is 600, and you have used proportionate stratified random sampling to get 300 population by randomly selecting half of each of the stratum. Then we have this disproportionate stratified random sampling. Disproportionate. The only difference between proportionate and disproportionate stratified random sampling is their sampling fractions. With disproportionate sampling, the different strata have different sampling fractions. You know, under the proportionate, we say half. That is, you are going to select half of each of the size of the stratum. But under the disproportionate, you just select without using the same fraction. You have different fractions to select from. Then we have purposive sampling. Purposive sampling. This is an example of non-probability sampling technique. In purposive sampling, sampling is done with a purpose in mind. With a purpose in mind. We usually would have one or more specific predefined groups we are seeking. For instance, now, you want to carry out experiments using laboratory method. The selection of the schools have to be done purposively. And what do I mean by this? You cannot go ahead and select schools that do not have a functional and well-equipped laboratory. So this is what is meant by purposeful. while choosing the schools you want to use for your experiment or research work, you have to look for schools that have laboratory, and the laboratories are well equipped. So that's what is meant by that. So in selecting, under this method, in selecting the schools, you have to choose the schools that are equipped with laboratories. So you don't choose the schools that have no laboratories. So this is what is meant by purposive sampling. We still continue with STRAS method. Instrument for data collection. What do I mean by this? When you say instrument for data collection, here the researcher describes the instrument he or she wants to use in collecting the data. How the instrument was developed, you have to tell us, you have to tell your target readers, and the major features of the instrument should be included in the description. For instance, in our existing example now, looking for effectiveness of laboratory method on student academic achievement, you should know that your main instrument here will be what? Achievement test. You are going to make use of achievement test to collect the data. Because it is when you give them, when you administer the achievement test for them as a pretest, you also, before the lesson, that before using the method, you also administer the same set of achievement tests to them immediately after using the method to teach them. So this achievement test is what is called your own instrument for data collection. So your instrument for data collection depends on the type of or the nature of your research. It depends on your nature of research. If it's just to collect opinion from people, you are going to make use of questionnaire. When we get to that, I will refer you to this important area. The other one is methods of data collection. I've already mentioned that. Experimental research is what I've been talking about here. You want to know the effectiveness of laboratory method on student academic achievement. What method are you going to use to collect your data? Like the other time I told you, pre-test, post-test method in this existing example. If you ever administer the achievement test to them to know their knowledge in the topic you want to teach them, their performance will tell you how knowledgeable they are in the topic you want to teach them. Then, after you must have taught them the topic using the method you want to use, you administer the same set of tests to them. And at the end of the day, you now compare their scores. That is the pre-test scores and the post-test scores of each individual student. That is a method. Like I said, the type of research you want to carry out has its own method of data collection and instrument for data collection. Then we talk of method of data analysis. This is the researcher talks about the statistical tools used in analyzing the collected data. In this our existing example now, you want to compare the mean scores of student. That is 2 mean scores. And ordinarily, you are going to make use of t-test statistical method of analysis. You get to know more of this in our subsequent topic on this course. Then data gathering techniques. How do you gather your data? There are different ones. We have the interview method. We have the questionnaire method. We have other one, the one I mentioned the other time. When you want to interview, if your research method is about interviewing people to know about their opinion, you have to go and interview them one-on-one. Then we have the questionnaire method. The questionnaire method, we have the open questionnaires and the closed questionnaire. Here, you want to know the opinion of your target population about certain issue. So you must have written them down and you have them to respond to it. We have what is called open questionnaire. In the open questionnaire, fixed answers are not provided, and respondents are allowed the opportunity to express their opinions. For example, the examiner may ask a group of respondents, how many wives has your father? It is left for you to say, my father has only one wife, 2 wives, 3 wives, 4 wives, etc. Are you getting it? So that is open questionnaire. Then, under the closed questionnaire, the researcher gives the respondent opportunity with a choice of possible answers, thereby giving respondent enough rooms to express their motives and individual preferences. For example, how many wives has your father? Then under the choices, you want them to respond to maybe 1, 8, 10, 12, 5, 9, etc. So it is the respondent now that will now choose the one that applies to him or her. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we have come to the B part of Module 6. We still have the C part. Until then, do have a great day.